Calvary Chapel presents Pastor's Perspective, a one-hour program that gives a biblical and pastoral viewpoint on the theological, social, and practical issues of the day. We'll be taking your calls in just a moment. But first, here's today's host.
Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to the Thursday edition of Pastor's Perspective. Yes, it's Terrific Thursday again. I'm Don Stewart with Pastor Brian Broderson, taking your calls and questions as usual. Toll-free across America at 1-888-564-6173, 1-888-564-6173. If you have a question about what we believe as Christians, why we're Christians, or how to live the Christian life, that's the number you dial, 1-888-564-6173. If you want to watch the program live and in color, you have a lot of options. You can watch us on his channel, where we welcome our viewers from around the world, or at www.KWVE.com, where the live webcast is going on, or www.calvarychapel.com, where another live broadcast is going on. Brian, welcome to Terrific Thursday.
Don, thank you. Great to be here. It is it is a terrific day.
It is a terrific day. And we got some terrific things coming up this weekend, don't we?
Terrific things. We got the beauty bash.
Yes, that's not for us, though.
No,
we'll make that clear.
You know, I've been given the job of promoting the beauty bash. So I was sharing it with the congregation last night, and it was a little bit humorous.
I bet it was
because they wrote out this sort of a description.
Oh
of it,
no, you had to read it.
Just a little bit funny, yeah. So, but yes, starting tomorrow evening, right here at the church, Calvary Chapel, we got the beauty bash, and this is an event that's just ministering to ladies, teenagers, young girls. Just, you know, a lot of girls in our culture today struggle with, you know, just the insecurity.
Self-esteem issues, right?
Right, yeah. Sorry, I got some
no problem
in my throat here. They struggle. Just like I'm struggling.
We understand struggling. We all have done it, yes.
I'm struggling to speak. So they struggle with these things, with insecurities and so forth, self-esteem and all that. So this is a way to minister to them, just, you know, teach them about, you know, God's love for them and the fact that they're beautiful in His sight regardless.
Indeed.
You know, cultivate and develop the inner woman, but also just give them basic, you know, tips and help with their appearance and so forth. Good. So it's good. It's exciting, and I mentioned my two daughters are involved in it, so it's good that they're doing that, and it's going to be a good time. So it's Friday evening, all day Saturday, and beautybash.cccm.com is where you can get information. If you're a young lady that's out there in the local area, you want to come be part of it, then go to the website there and you can register for it right there.
Okay, is there a cost to it?
I think there's a cost. I think the cost is $35.
Okay, so there's a cost. And you register online, or do you register, or can you register when you show up at the door?
You can register when you show up.
Okay, good.
Well, yeah. Or you can register online, but you can also register if you just show up.
Is it 7 o'clock on Friday? You know the time?
I think Friday is 6:30 or 7, and then Saturday I would imagine is going to be sort of 9 to the evening.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So have workshops and things like that too. Oh,
exactly.
That's great. That's fantastic. Well, fabulous.
Yeah.
Good. So what else we got going on?
Well, I was just in a meeting with some guys. I'm so excited about this. We got a project going where I think I might have mentioned it before some months ago, but we're doing a documentary, sort of a docudrama on the lives of 4 former gang members.
Yeah, you did mention that. Yes,
who are now pastors.
Right.
And so today we sat in with a producer, and we watched the footage that he has so far. And I'll tell you, man, I just was sitting there just being blessed.
Powerful,
by the story. The stories are unbelievable, And, you know, he's going to attempt to dramatize this and, you know, involve actors and things like that. It'll be it'll be more like a docudrama. But I'm super excited about it.
Wonderful.
Yeah, these guys are amazing guys. And, you know, as one of them said to the producer's a young kid from Seattle, and he's a great, he's really, really gifted with film. And he's like, wow, you know, I didn't even know that this gangster world existed. I'm from Seattle, you know, we don't have this.
They don't have gangsters there?
Not of this
Not that ilk, huh?
Yeah, and but one of the guys said to him, he said, you know, he said, you need to understand that in some ways these gang type of guys, and these guys in prison, they're kind of the hippies of this generation. And in other words, comparing it back to the 60s and 70s when all the hippie young people were coming to Christ. These guys are coming to Christ by the droves these days.
Great.
You know,
That's wonderful.
And I said, the only difference is they're not coming out of a peace love environment.
No, that was
they're coming out of
a little bit different.
Hate violence place. But I mean, I'm just hearing the story today of one of the guys who's describing 3 different occasions where his best friend is gunned down right in his presence. Wow. So this is heavy stuff. Yeah, serious stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I'm super excited about the prospects with this.
Now, do they have a date when they're going to release it?
Well,
right now, tentative, right?
Yeah, tentative date is, we're probably a good 6 months out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take some time, the editing and
all of that, putting it together. So they're still in the filming process, and then it's a matter of trying to just sit down and kind of piece it all together.
Now, how's it going to be released? What's the plan on that?
Well, we haven't gotten there yet, but we'll do a huge thing, as huge as we can. Through we're the ones that are sort of behind it.
Got it.
So we'll do that. But I think this potentially really could go. I think it could
go viral.
Have a very broad appeal.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Any chance we can get some of these guys in studio and talk to them?
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be great.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, 2 of them broadcast on K-Wave on Saturday.
Really?
David Trujillo and David Zamora are both.
I know both of those guys.
Yeah.
They're
great.
They're great guys.
Yeah, and then there's Jose Hernandez, and Tommy Cota is our own.
Right.
Tommy's with us here, and he's also pastoring the new church, Living Hope in Santa Ana.
Wow.
And it'd be great. Actually, it would be a good program to just get those guys in.
It'd be fabulous to get the word out, and because there's hope there for these people that are in this. Because Brian, people in gangs, a lot of times they say, well, that's all they have. They have no other hope. If they get out of the gang, it's their life. But these guys have escaped it and come to Christ.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Fascinating stories of God's grace.
Isn't it? Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah, so what's happened in the world? I've been locked in appointments all day.
Here's the thing, and here's the headline now. It's called, "The Department of the Internet is Now Born." And one person said, one of the commissioners there on the FCC who voted against this new thing, said, "Read my lips, there will be new taxes." So evidently, whatever this new net neutrality is going to be, it's part of law. It's sort of like the Obamacare. We have to pass it before we know what's in it, so nobody knows exactly what's in it. But they passed it now, and so we'll see what the new regulations are for the Internet. So that's one of the huge stories going on. But basically, it's government-run, government control. What more do we need to know, right?
Well, I just saw something come up from Google that seemed to put it in a positive light. I wouldn't think Google would be all that positive about
well, to some
like
of the see, it's sort of like Obamacare. Those that supported it, have when they do the handouts, they get the the hand filled, the blessing, and those that don't, stand at the back of the line. It seems so. Google, it seems, was one of the players that really liked this, I guess, because
I did see something that asked the question yesterday: is will the internet become Obamanet?
Yeah, that's well, we'll see. Who knows?
Yeah,
and how does anybody know when they don't even release it ahead of time? They won't show it to the public. There's no type of, like they put a law up where people can comment on it.
Yeah.
300.
So now, was this a congressional vote?
No, FCC. 5 members of the FCC, 3 Democrats, 2 Republicans voted party line. And the Republican guys said this is a power grab. It's it's not necessary. It wasn't broke. Doesn't need to be fixed. And the one person said, "Read my lips. There will be new taxes coming. So they will find a way to tax us for using the internet some way, somehow." So that's one of the big stories. So
what's new? I mean, new ways to tax. That's just kind of the way it has always been.
Nothing new under the sun, is there? Yeah. Death and taxes. And you've got more controversy over Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech. They sent out Susan Rice again to complain about it's going to hurt the relationship between the U.S. and Israel. And what Israel is saying, well, look, this is our future at stake when Iran has this existential threat of wanting to destroy us. Who've said that they're preparing nuclear weapons, the devices that'll send the weapons, and so the world needs to know at least our perspective on it. So it's next Wednesday he's going to be speaking.
Right. Yeah.
And so
Yeah, well,
we got that.
Boy, these are wild times, and I was listening to a broadcast this morning, and it was focusing in on euthanasia in Holland.
Yeah.
And 10 years ago they passed euthanasia.
I remember that. It's been 10 years now.
It's been 10 years.
Wow.
2001 or something. It's been a little more. But anyway, what it's evolved into today is absolutely astounding. That in Holland today, if you can get two doctors to agree with you, you can be euthanized. And it was originally for, you had an incurable disease or an intractable pain or something like that.
Dementia,
Yeah, now it's essentially come down, the way one guy worded it is, if you're tired of living, you can
the slippery
be euthanized.
slope.
But here's the even more radical thing. It goes all the way down to 12-year-olds. And they're arguing now that 12 is even too old because there are 11-year-olds that can make these kinds of choices. So, but as I'm listening to this, I'm thinking, it's insane, right?
Beyond insane.
But this is where you go without God.
Of course.
And I think if you're living in a world without God, if you're living in a hopeless situation, if you believe in no afterlife, if you believe in no judgment, and you're miserable, why not just end it?
Yeah, exactly.
But the big surprise is it doesn't end it.
No, it doesn't.
It's the beginning of an eternal situation, one way or the other, right?
Yep. Death takes us to a destination.
Yeah.
It's not the end.
So,
it's just.
But as I listened to this in a similar program earlier in the week, not dealing with euthanasia, but it all comes back down to this, this new value, the kind of the core Western value now is human autonomy. That we are not accountable to anybody except ourselves. And earlier in the week, the broadcaster was talking about just how this whole human autonomy thing has led to not just the destruction of the family, but now it's a situation where parents used to argue over who gets the kids.
Right.
Now they're arguing about who doesn't get them because neither parent really wants them because they want to disengage from this whole thing so they can pursue their own happiness. They don't want to be tied down by the kids that they had now. And but it's all in the name of this autonomy thing that we are our own. We're left to determine to ourselves what is best for us, and nobody should say anything to the contrary.
Yeah. Brian, we're both parents. Can you even imagine your wildest dreams, even thinking that, of not wanting, to have your own children or raise them or be with? I can't conceive of. I can't either.
But people do.
I know. It doesn't, it's so inconceivable, but it seems to be true and it seems to be happening.
But Don, in all of it, for me, as a pastor, as a preacher, the silver lining is it just shows you that people need God.
They do. Yes, they do.
So we're definitely in the right occupation.
Yeah. We'll always have a job because there's always sinners out there need to get saved, right? We're not going to run out of people. Yeah. Yeah. There's always a need out there. Yeah. That's incredible. Well.
So, and what, and I just, today as I was just thinking about these things and praying about them and so forth, I continue to thank the Lord for the amazing platforms He's given us, the amazing opportunities.
Incredible.
And the one that we have right now.
We've been watched worldwide right now, and and the radio network is going crazy, and it's wonderful to be able to do that, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It's really a blessing.
Yeah, and we're humbled by it, and we don't take it for granted, do we? Because particularly with this new FCC rule, who knows how long we'll be able to do exactly the same way? Because they're talking about eventually, well, how about the UN controlling the internet? Let them do it. If that happens, and we're doing hate speech, right, by quoting the Bible and quoting, we will see. So anyway, that's going on. Let me, real quickly, I want to talk about the program on Monday I mentioned to you. This is going to be really interesting. We're going to have a very special guest here, Major Friedman, and he's a highly decorated military person, along with 7 others. They're going to put a movie together from the Army, Air Force, Navy, and Marines, servicemen and women participating in a film offering hope to those returning from war, the wounded warriors, as it were. 2.1 million, Brian, young men and women have been deployed in Iraq and Afghanistan since 2001. 22 suicides per day of people returning. And these
2.1 million. I
had no idea that.
Yeah.
But their thing is, they're all believers in Christ. They're going to have a message of hope. So he's going to be in studio. Actually, change his schedule around so he can come a day early. They're putting a movie together called Surrender, where these 8 heroes will be interviewed to give hope to people out there who want to take their own lives coming back from war. And as we've talked about here, Brian, these people are heroes. They're put themselves on the line in harm's way for you and I. They've gone to countries, suffered immeasurable things, seen things that we can't even, just like the gang members saw things in the fog of war, what you see there. So that should be very interesting, what we do have on Monday. So he's going to be a very special guest and doing that. So that should be fascinating. So if you're out there, if you're a military person, you know someone in the military, a spouse, or whatever, listen on Monday, because we're going to have some hope for those that think there is no hope. Because we get quite a bit of calls, Brian, in the past from people in the military that are suffering from what they've gone through, and sort of like, I remember during my time, my day and age in Vietnam, my generation, they'd come back and they were treated like animals because nobody asked us to go over there to be drafted and to fight. And I lost a number of friends in Vietnam. I lost, and some of my good friends were never the same after that. And it seemed like nobody cared. So as Christians, we do care, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So that's Monday here on Pastor's Perspective. All right, ready to go to the phones?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go to Joan from New Jersey. This is a great opening question here from the bridge. Hi, Joan. Welcome to Pastor's Perspective on Terrific Thursday.
Hi. This is my first time calling. I've been a Christian for over 25 years, and I've gone from a dispensational church to a non-denominational church. But lately, what has come up is a question about Calvinism and Arminianism.
Right.
They're just two different views or opinions on the Scripture, right?
Correct.
And the only thing is, why are they, how can I put it, is it contradictive, each believing in each other, something that it makes it very confusing, like predestination and pick or choose, losing your salvation. Why is it out there? I don't understand why it's such a big thing on those views.
Yeah, no, excellent question.
We get them?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
No. Excellent question, Joan. You're not alone. Brian, this is a great question. And why don't you take some time and help people out there. Now, let's say at the beginning, though, our Calvinist friends that listen to the program, they believe, like we do, one way to get to the one God through the person of Jesus Christ, right? You can't make it on your own, salvation by grace through faith. We'll start that at the outset. So we're one on that, aren't we?
Yeah. And as somebody put it one time, it's what the real difference in these two theological systems is really the mechanism of salvation. Just exactly. Do you have a choice in the matter, or is it which would be the Arminian position? You do have a choice in the matter. The Calvinist position is that no, you don't really have a choice. You were chosen by God, and you don't really, it's just all, He regenerates you at a certain point, and then, He gives you faith and so forth. And, I think there's been way too much argumentation and contention over these issues throughout the years. Now, just to clarify, we are neither Calvinist nor Arminian.
That's important to mention. We are neither.
Yeah, and we feel like in both positions, you at certain points end up in a little bit of conflict with the Scripture.
Correct.
And so the problem with this, in our view, is that you set up a theological system, then you try to force the Scriptures to agree with your theological system, or you view the Scriptures through your theological system. We believe that we need to let the Scriptures themselves shape our theological view.
Indeed.
So I've talked to many Calvinists over the years. I have good friends who are Calvinists, and there are certain passages of Scripture they just don't want to talk about. They don't want to even acknowledge it. They would prefer that those were not there because they are in conflict with their view. Well, I think we can't get rid of them. No. So we have to acknowledge that they're there. We have to admit that they're in conflict. So at a certain point, I think we just have to back off a little bit on our theological position and say, well, I'm going to go with the Bible here. Yeah. It doesn't fit into my system. Maybe my system is not as airtight as I thought it was. So, but again, there's great men on both sides of this issue, and so we don't want to be divided over it. And going back to your original question, Joan, it really is due to trying to come up with a system of theology and fit everything into that that system, or there's some people have the need to have everything in a nice package. So we've got it in the package, now we understand it. The Bible, I don't think the Bible allows us to have it all that neat. I think the Bible leaves it just a little messier than that, and there's just places we have to say, I don't know how this works together. I don't know how to reconcile this particular idea with this other idea. But I don't know that because I am a finite creature, and I'm trying to understand concepts that are infinite in some ways. So best thing we can do is just let the Bible speak. And where the Bible is loud and clear, then we embrace that. Where the Bible is silent, we say, I don't know. And where it's ambiguous, we say, well, I don't know, could go one way or the other.
Yeah. I've often said, Brian, I went to a Bible college where all my professors were Calvinists. They loved the Lord, had a great relationship with Christ, godly men and women. I would just not see it exactly the same on that way, but, we'd agree probably on 98% of things.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's the mechanism, how to get there. And I think like you said, there's been way too much controversy over something. When we peel the onion, there's not really that much difference in a lot of senses what we believe.
Yeah, and sometimes, Don, I think it is not always the younger, newer, more zealous voices that kind of create the contention. I mean, there are some older, not so new voices that want to be cantankerous about it, but I've met plenty of seasoned, mature people who hold a Calvinistic or Reformed view, and I appreciate it when somebody, that's their conviction, that's their view, but they don't feel compelled to convert me to agreeing with them. It's like, I'm happy for you to have that view. I'm not going to try to persuade you against it. Would you please allow me the same right to just, I don't see it that way. I don't. You're never going to convince me that is the proper view. So let's just love each other and serve Jesus and move on.
Yeah. So Joan, at the end of the day, we would agree, like we said, on 98% of the truth of Scripture. There'll be a few things that we believe are not that clear. Some people might think they are, but on the fundamentals of the faith, the basics, there's no difference whatsoever. We all believe in the same one God, the doctrine of the Trinity, the one way to get to the one God through Jesus, his death on the cross, his resurrection, his ascension, and his coming back to judge the living and the dead. And we're all one on that.
Yep.
And so hopefully we can that's the basis of our fellowship. There are disagreements, and we disagree agreeably. We do it in love, recognizing that we may not have all the answers either.
Right.
All right. Great question, though. All right, Hector from Anaheim, California, has got another great question, as you all people do on the line. Hi, Hector. Welcome to the program.
Hi, pastors.
Hi.
I have two quick questions, if I may.
Okay.
One is, when Joshua went into Jericho, he saw an angel. Was that Christ?
Okay, the angel of the Lord there, the captain of the Lord's host. Was it the pre-incarnate Christ? Is there a follow-up to this question, Hector, you're going to ask?
No, I just wanted to know because he bowed down to him.
Yeah, okay. On this question, Brian, the captain of the Lord's host, it could be, Christophany or theophany there, because Joshua did bow down. Do you see it that way? Or
I do. Yeah, he says, I'm the captain of the Lord's host, which means he's the captain of the armies of heaven, essentially. So and Joshua seemed to acknowledge his divinity, as he takes off his shoes. It's the same situation that Moses experienced.
Yeah.
Different manifestation, but the same. Take off your shoes. It's holy ground.
Yeah, and it's different than the angel in Revelation. When John tried to bow down before him, he said, no, you worship God only. The fact that was allowed seems to indicate, doesn't it, that this was the pre-incarnate Christ.
Yeah, so I think that's what we would call a Christophany.
Yeah, it seemed to make sense.
Of Christ before the incarnation.
Yeah, more than just a mere messenger of the Lord. Sometimes an angel is just an angel, a messenger. That's all the word means. But in this particular situation, Hector, it seemed to be the pre-incarnate Christ. So you had a follow-up question to that?
Yes, just different, but there I'm reading Deuteronomy. Balaam, was he not from Israel, and was he a prophet?
Yeah, Balaam, the Gentile prophet, the prophet after prophet. Now he is very odd character, isn't he, Brian? You study the life of Balaam.
Yeah.
He's talked about 3 times in the New Testament, always in a negative way,
Yeah.
yet he seemed to have a gift of prophecy.
Yeah, and you're right, Hector. He was not an Israelite. He was, a Midianite, maybe, or...
I'm trying to remember, it's one of those ites.
Yeah, I mean, he gave counsel to Midian.
Yeah.
He gave the bad counsel that brought about the judgment on Israel because the Midianites deceived the Israelites. And then Balaam was destroyed. We read about his the judgment that came upon him. But interestingly, he does have a prophetic
Sure does.
gift. And remember, this is all in kind of a transitional period of time too, where he's just establishing the covenant with Israel. And so you had, I think, kind of a broader manifestation of the Lord back prior to the Mosaic covenant being enacted and that whole thing really developing, with the nation and then the Jewish prophets and so forth. So, like, for example, the book of Job, nobody knows who Job was. Nope. He wasn't a descendant of Abraham. He was probably a contemporary of Abraham, but he was obviously a righteous man who knew God and God knew him. And so Balaam had some kind of a relationship with the Lord where he did prophesy. His problem was he was greedy. And instead of doing what God told him to do, he took the bait that the king was offering him, which was that the king would make him a great person if he did what he wanted. And Balaam knew that he couldn't do it right out front, so he kind of did it behind the scenes, and of course God saw that too. So, but he gives a beautiful messianic prophecy.
He does, doesn't he? There,
yeah,
which is
the star coming out.
Yeah, Numbers 24, something like that, or 17. Yeah, so. He's an enigma, isn't he? Because that's the one he's the prophet where the donkey spoke to him, because it showed that the donkey had more perception spiritually. The donkey saw the angel with the flaming sword, and Balaam, who was supposed to listen, the Lord didn't. So fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, fascinating character and an enigma in many ways.
Yeah, very much enigma. So again, like the New Testament, the error of Balaam, the way of Balaam, the doctrine of Balaam, all spoken against.
He doesn't get a good report.
No, none at all. So here, and so what brings he has more question than answers, I guess, when it comes to Balaam, Brian, because you wonder, well, God obviously used him, but he was a prophet who had a gift, but used it for his own advantage, and eventually was killed for it. Yeah. So will we see? He's not mentioned in the Hall of Fame there in Hebrews chapter 11 as a great person of faith. So I don't know.
Hard to say about. Where he ultimately lands.
Yeah, but I like what you said, the transitional period, because as God chose the nation Israel, they're going to the promised land. God still got his word to other nations too. Yeah. He still worked. He had his and Balaam seems to be representative of maybe others that were out there, that God spoke the truth to. So they were not ignorant. The people, for 4 centuries, 400 years in the promised land of Canaan, heard about, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but they still practices their horrible practices.
Yeah, another example would be, Melchizedek.
Exactly.
Here's this priest of God Most High. Who's he? Who's he related?
He's greater than Abraham, but we heard nothing about him until he comes on and blesses Abraham, right? Who is he?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think what it does, too, it shows us that God was getting his word out through personages and beings that we don't know about, and someday only, and I guess in eternity, we'll find out that God had his way of reaching these people, apart from what he revealed to us in the Bible. Yeah. It was the same message, but,
Yeah, and I think today there's truth to that, too, isn't there? I mean, we hear stories. I just heard a story the other day, another one of these amazing stories about a convert from Islam who the Lord appeared to him.
Really?
And that was the thing that turned him around, and it was he saw like an image of a star, and in the star was a man who was calling to him, and it was Jesus and pointing him to himself. Yeah, it was pretty fascinating.
And so and the Lord sovereignly does this. In other words, tonight, don't try and ask Jesus to appear to you. That only happens in God's sovereign control there. Okay. Music says halfway through Terrific Thursday on Pastor's Perspective. If you'd like to join us, 1-888-564-6173. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Stay right with us. we're back with you with the second half of Pastor's Perspective here on this terrific Thursday. I'm Don Stewart with Pastor Brian Broderson, taking your calls and questions toll-free across the good old USA at 1-888-564-6173. Want to remind the young ladies again here in Southern California, the Beauty Bash is coming to Calvary Chapel in 2 days. Or it's coming tomorrow, right? Tomorrow night?
Tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right. It's Thursday. Lose track of the days. 7 o'clock, Calvary here, Costa Mesa. Beautybash.ccm.com for the information. $35 charge Friday night and basically all day Saturday. And it should be something very special, shouldn't it, Brian, for the ladies?
Yeah, it's going to be good. Okay. So next week, Dawn, I just mentioned to you I'm going to be out of town. And we're going to be actually gathering with some of the leaders, Calvary Chapel pastors, back in Pennsylvania.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
For a week of prayer.
Fabulous. Yeah. I love that.
So just, praying for God's blessing.
Pray for you guys then.
Praying for the churches and wisdom, direction, all those kind of things. So, just let people know they can keep us in prayer as we're
We will. We'll definitely pray for you each day. So next week, Brian will not be with us Tuesday or Thursday on the program. That's a great idea. And Brian, we've talked about this before, but we shouldn't ever underestimate the power of prayer, should we? The older we get, I think the more we appreciate what it does and what it continues to do, and how we need to take advantage of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. We cannot pray enough.
No, we
can't
cannot
pray hard enough.
No.
It's just it is. In some senses, it's our greatest our greatest weapon. Because prayer, it not only, of course, affects the things that you're praying for, but to me, prayer is kind of like it's what a workout is to you physically. Yep. Prayer is that spiritually.
Indeed.
And of course, the Scriptures, meditating in the Scriptures,
right.
Praying together, or praying. It's like you're working out your spirit.
Exactly.
And it strengthens you, just like a physical workout. You do that consistently. It strengthens you. This strengthens you, and
Indeed.
Boy, we need strength in these days, don't we?
Yeah. Well, we know that Jesus spent the whole night in prayer before he chose his apostles, and so if he felt the need to pray, how much more should we? Huh?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's great. Great to hear that. So the leadership there and praying and fabulous. Okay. Well, we will pray for you as you're praying for for whatever situation. Okay. Back to the phones. Let's go now. This is one we get questioned once in a while. Katie from Honesdale, Pennsylvania is next on Pastor's Perspective on Terrific Thursday. Hi, Katie. Thank you for waiting.
Hi, how you doing?
We're fine, thank you.
In Numbers 4:6, my Bible says sea cows, that they had a cover, and I thought sea cows was a water animal, and I thought they were in the desert.
This is a great question here. Numbers 4:6, the Hebrew takash, badger skins, seal skins, goat skins, porpoise skins, sea cows, porpoises. It's very similar. The sea cow is close to the porpoise, which is they're in the Middle East, that area. It's one of those words, Brian. We just really not sure what kind of skins were the coverings of the tabernacle. That's why you have various translations of it. So it's one of those things that they used to cover the tabernacle with, but exactly what depends on. If you're reading numbered translations, you'll get like seal skin, goat skin, porpoise skin, hides of sea cows, etc.
Yeah, but and like you just said, we don't really know which one it was.
Yeah.
But remember, they were in the wilderness, but they were on a peninsula.
Correct.
And they had to cross.
That's right.
A sea to get to where they were.
Yeah.
So
it could be. Yeah.
Yeah. It could be.
Yeah. It could be either. Yeah. Animals that are out in the sea, we don't know, Katie. And so it's one of those words that's used. We got a few of those in the Old Testament. They're used only once, not really quite sure the meaning of it. And so it was some type of animal skin that covered the tabernacle. What it is beyond that, nobody really knows for sure. Okay? Well, great question. Wish we could do more on that. Candace from Fallbrook, thank you for waiting, Candace. You're on Pastor's Perspective. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How we doing? We need to turn the radio down.
Sorry.
No problem.
My question is, why did Jesus change from the people's names like Abraham, Jacob, and Sarah?
Right. And then like Peter and that, and Cephas and Simon and that. Okay, that's a great question there, Candace. Okay, Brian, we find in the Bible God changing a lot of names, like he mentioned, Abram to Abraham, Sarai to Sarah, Jacob to Israel, Simon, Peter, Cephas. So what's going on there with all that?
Well, It's a good question. The name Abraham and Sarah, for example, what God did is he took their names, Abram and Sarai, and he added part of his name to their name, and that was just a significant. The significance of that was showing that they were now his people. They were in this covenant relationship with him. And then with Jacob, God changes his name to Israel because this is going to be his new identity. Yeah. And he was named Jacob, or Yaakov is the Hebrew. His name was heel catcher because that's what he was doing when he was born. His hand was holding on to the foot of his brother, and so they named him heel catcher. But God says, no, you're going to be Israel. You're going to be a prince with God, or you're going to be governed by God. And so God gives him a name that's going to be indicating his character. And then Peter, of course, Peter comes from the Greek word that means a stone, and his original name, Simon. So the Lord changes his name to Cephas or to Peter, which means a stone. God's going to make him a stable, solid pillar, leader in his church. So the change of his name is indicative of the work that God's going to do in his life. So most of the time, that's what you have happening.
Yeah, Candace, way before you were born, back in 1988, heard an interesting story. I used to do chapels for the pro baseball teams, the Dodgers and the Angels, and we used to have pro football teams out here in Southern California, too. Heard a great story about Tommy Lasorda, the manager, Oral Hershiser. When he came up, it was a very nervous, kind of scared young pitcher individual. So Tommy named him Bulldog. And he said, okay, you're Bulldog from now on. And Oral turned out to be, the greatest, scoreless inning streak in the history of the, major leagues. But it's interesting. John Warehouse, who was the chaplain there, told me the story. And he said he did that because he thought, if you keep calling him that, maybe he'll start acting that way. And so God did sort of the same thing, didn't he, to these people? You're the Rock, Peter. You're, this and that.
That's good.
It's a great story. So that's what's going on, Candace. That was way before your time, though. So how old are you, Candace, from Fallbrook, California?
I'm 10 years old.
10 years old. All right. Excellent question. And that's one a lot of people ask, Candace. It's a great one when folks want to know the Bible. They read this and they thought, all right, why did God do that? But, it was for some really good reasons. A lot of them were prophetic, too, obviously, too.
Right, yeah.
And so great question, Candace. Hope you will call us back again soon with another excellent one. Look at these great questions here. How about Matthew and La Habra? Matthew's been waiting the longest here. Thank you for your patience. Matthew, you are on Pastor's Perspective. Hi.
Thank you. My question is concerning the Gospels. I was wondering, what would be a good argument for us as Christians to, doubters and skeptics, a good case that we can present to them that would support the idea that the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were actually authored by their respective names and people?
No, excellent question, Matthew. Brian, what would you tell him?
Well, Matthew, the first thing I would say is that the opinions that are contrary to that are old, outdated, and disproven opinions. So most scholars are having to admit that these dates of 300 AD or somewhere in the 200s they're not true. They actually have recently discovered a manuscript or a piece of the Gospel of Mark,
fragment
from Mark that dates back into 70 or so?
Yes, around that. Somewhere in the first century, and they're going to publish it hopefully in the near future. We've heard about that for a couple of years, so it's going to be interesting to see what they come up with.
Yeah. So current scholarship, unless it's just being downright dishonest, is acknowledging that the Gospels were written in the first century rather than in the second or third or fourth century. So, but a good book on that. Don. The Case for Christ is still a good, Lee Strobel's book, and he did a good job on addressing that. I would recommend at least reading that over and maybe even giving that to somebody who has questions about it. But most honest scholars are not going with those long.
It's interesting.
Old date,
Brian, how
later dates.
Theologians aren't sort of with the mainstream. There was a Roman historian of the last generation, A.N. Sherwin White, who said Roman historians have long accepted the historicity of the Gospels as opposed to some theologians, because they see intimate things that show minute understanding of the times that only someone who was there would really know. Someone writing after the fact would not know these sort of things because they were time sensitive. And the fact that 50 years later, 100 years later, the whole issue changed. The boundaries changed of a country. Something changed where the writers had to have been there.
Yeah, right.
But that's an objective view where someone coming in from a different field looks at it. But with theologians, a lot of them have access to grind in certain ways, don't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And they don't want to be held responsible, so they deny it. So
Don, I was talking to my wife about this very thing. She's reading through she goes through these different study Bibles, and the one that she happens to be reading right now, she's really kind of finding these points where she's getting frustrated because some of their comments are,
I know.
You can see they've been influenced with liberal sort of ideas, and it's just interesting how so often it is the theologians they want to reduce the supernatural. They want to try to find a naturalistic explanation for so many of these things that are obviously supernatural. They're miraculous, but you just see the influence of the pressure that people come under to be, academically accepted, I guess is the best way to think, to be looked upon as being part of the intelligentsia and not wanting to be seen as, this person obviously isn't as bright as we are or whatever. There's a huge pressure in that.
There is. But really, what do any of us know? I mean, relatively speaking, about, the world in the first century or 3,500, 4,000 years ago? What we have, even outside the Scripture, is very minuscule. Archaeological sites, for example, only 1% of them have begin to be excavated, and even the 1%, not all of that's been published. So there's so much we don't know. But these people assume there's a pride factor there, Brian. People get a little education, they learn a few things, and they think they know everything. But one of the things we learn is the more we learn, the more we realize how much there is still to learn. We don't know, right? And so that's why that's why I don't understand the arrogance rather than humility when you study the Scriptures. Because you and I do it every day, and we go, I didn't know that. Every day, I didn't know that. It's like there's a great discovery there.
Yeah. Well, the passage that Cheryl was getting kind of frustrated over is the Isaiah 14 passage, where it transitions from the prophecy against the king of Babylon to the king of Satan.
The angel became the devil.
Fall.
Yes, exactly.
And the Bible she's reading says, oh no, this was probably a Canaanite deity, and this and that. And I said, turn over to Ezekiel and let's see what they said. Ezekiel 28. Let's see what they said about that. And so she reads it and she says, oh, here, they say it's obviously making a reference to Satan. So I'm thinking, they're very similar passages. They're almost parallel passages. Why in one place would they take the more liberal position, and in the other place hold to a more conservative position? I mean, it could have been two different writers, I guess, because you have a crew of people that do these
these study commentaries, and that's what happens. You got one person contradicting something said. They quote a passage, and the other person in that passage writes their own commentary, totally disagrees the other.
All in the same study Bible.
All the same study Bible, But this is very popular today. Almost, most of the modern scholars reject the idea of Satan being behind Isaiah 14 or Ezekiel 28. But it seems to make total sense when you have these two personages, the king of Babylon, the prince of Tyre. Either the explanation is very much hyperbole, or it's talking about a being, and it seems to talk about it firsthand, a being who said, I will 5 times, I will exalt myself. Someone beyond an earthly ruler.
Yeah, well, especially Ezekiel 28.
Oh, yeah.
You were the anointed cherub that covers. You were in the garden of God. I mean, that certainly wasn't the prince of Tyre.
No, he was not in the garden of God. No,
right,
no.
So. But it's that reluctance to just really embrace the supernatural perspective of the Bible, right?
Yeah, almost apologizing that there's supernatural elements in the Bible. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, and of course, this is not anything new, right?
No, but it's still frustrating.
The denial of the supernatural, the denial of miracles. I mean, back in the days of the what was the social gospel, they thought, this love your neighbor as yourself and turn the other cheek. This is all good stuff, but these miracles are messing it up. So we gotta let everybody know these miracles really didn't happen. Yeah, this was just embellishment. Yeah. So let's get rid of the supernatural part of the Bible and let's just take the ethical part.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
old liberalism and nothing new under the sun. A lot of the, you know, some of the new movements here, you know, the what do they call the church there that I forgot their name already. What do we used to call
the
them?
emergent guys?
Emergent guys. Yes, I forgot them because I don't talk about it anymore. Because they're another blip on the radar. I mean, the emergent guys that were kind of falling by the wayside.
They emerged, then they resubmerged.
They submerged the submergent church now because it's just old liberalism. We're just denying the miracles and asking questions but not giving answers. The Bible gives answers, and that's the good news. All right, Sarah from Murrieta has got another excellent question. I've been waiting a while. Hi, Sarah. Thank you for waiting. You're on Pastor's Perspective. Hi.
Hi, Pastor. Thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome.
My question relates to Genesis 6,
right.
And about how times were in the days of Noah.
Right.
And then, so in there it talks about, we're told that people were corrupt, their ways were corrupted,
right.
and the earth was full of violence.
Correct.
And then now in Matthew 24 and probably in Luke somewhere, they
right.
talk about people were just buying and selling, marrying, and
right.
and that
before the flood.
So do those two kind of mesh together?
Yeah.
You know, as far as the way the times were before the flood?
Yeah, they do actually, Sarah, big time, because Jesus, well, Brian, two things. There are similar conditions on the earth, and people had no clue what was about to happen with the flood or about the coming of Christ.
Yeah, I think the point that Jesus is making is really that it's going to be business as usual.
That's the word.
The flood is going to come and take everybody's, just like the flood came and took everybody by surprise, so the judgment is going to come and take everybody by surprise. They're just going to be going on with life as, but, to go back and look at the days of Noah, I've done this plenty of times in studies over the years. You can compare, yes, there was violence that filled the earth. There was an increase in demonic activity. And that's probably a legitimate comparison or parallel, but I don't think that's exactly what Jesus was referring to. I think he was just simply making the point that people are going to just be living their life like there is no judgment, and the judgment is suddenly going to hit them.
Yeah, and without even, they didn't believe the preaching of Noah. They don't believe the preaching of us, that there is a judgment coming. So many things in parallel. Great question, Sarah. Meg from Glendale's been waiting a long time, too. Thank you for your patience, Meg. You're on Pastor's Perspective. Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
I first wanted to say thank you so much for the program.
You're welcome.
It's an amazing program.
Thank you.
For believers and non-believers, because I believe everyone listens to it.
Well, a lot of people do. Thank you.
Right. I have a question about chapter 12 in Revelation.
Right.
I believe that everyone says that the child that is born is Jesus.
I hope they do.
So the woman that goes into wilderness for 3.5 years, that got protected, did that happen after Jesus was born? I mean, that's the part that I don't understand.
Great question, Meg. Some people think it did, but we think it's still to happen, right, Brian?
Yeah, the woman that's being referred to there, some people interpret that to be Mary.
Exactly.
But that would be problematic because we have no history of Mary having done any of those things. So it's Israel, actually. Right. Jesus came from Israel, and he came from Mary, who was an Israelite. She was a daughter of, she was in the Davidic line. Right. So the reference there to the woman that flees into the wilderness is a reference to Israel.
Yeah, the whole passage there, Meg, where you read Revelation 11, you've got measuring the temple, you've got two witnesses witnessing in Jerusalem, you've got the Ark of the Covenant seen in heaven, Revelation 11:19, then you go into 12:1, and you've got the woman and the son, who is it sort of reminds us of Joseph's second dream in Genesis 37, and then the woman who gave birth is Israel. Israel is used often in the Old Testament as a woman in labor and that, and then the offspring, of course, is the one who's going to rule the nations with a rod of iron. That kind of limits it, doesn't it, Brian?
Yeah, that makes it pretty clear.
Pretty clear who it is. And that's the Lord Jesus himself. So and so he's the male child there in Revelation 12. Okay, Jessica from Oceanside's been waiting forever too. Jessica, thank you for your patience. You're on Pastor's Perspective. Hi.
Hi guys, thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I'm going to ask my question and then I'll hang up so I can listen.
Okay.
And I'm hoping I formulate this right so you guys can understand it. But Netanyahu, he's coming to town.
Right.
I had some interesting prayer time, and I just really feel an urgency in my spirit to pray for him and his protection.
Good.
I'm hoping that you'll close with that, and you guys can pray for him. That was my request, is for prayers for Benjamin Netanyahu. But I'm trying to make some sense of, what's going on politically and following prophecy. And in specifically Jeremiah 49, prophecy of Elam.
Right.
When it says, I think it's the first one, it says, I will break the bow of Elam. I'm curious, could this prophecy precede Psalm 83, or is it talking about Ezekiel 38? Or am I completely off? So I'll leave it at that, and I'll let you go.
Okay, yeah. Elam are the Elamites. They're in Jeremiah 39. Who are they, Brian?
Well, some people say the Elamites are the Kurdish people today, and they very well could be. We don't know for certain. But, Don, as she was just saying what she was saying, I was thinking, here's the thing I think we need to understand. We are in a period of time, this age of grace, where God is doing something through his church. And in a sense, what's happening right now, I don't think there's anything happening right now that you can find an actual Bible prophecy about.
Agreed.
Netanyahu coming to the United States, for example. There's no prophecy about that. Prophecy with Israel, all of the stuff that's prophesied is going to pick up and begin again when the church is removed.
Correct.
So now we're in a period of time that's really, the Bible doesn't really talk about this period of time.
We're in
the Old Testament doesn't.
The parentheses.
Yeah, we're in the parentheses. So I think, all of these attempts to try to interpret current events in light of, this is a fulfillment of this and that's a fulfillment of that, and Isaiah said that these towers, and that was the 9/11 attacks and all that. No, this is not right. No. And so don't look for any specific Bible prophecy to be being fulfilled right now. The clock stopped with Israel when Jesus came and was rejected and died and rose again, and then he ascended to heaven. He sent the Spirit. The clock will begin on Israel again when the church is taken out of the world. Then the prophecies are going to become very specifically fulfilled.
Yeah, that is so important to emphasize, because we are in an age of a parentheses between the 69th and 70th week of Daniel, the age of the church, not seen in the Old Testament. So prophecies like Jeremiah 49, Psalm 83, I believe that's already been fulfilled in history. It's not really a prophecy, it's a lament there against these nations about to attack Israel, but it assumes Israel is at that time the people of God in some type of relationship. And we know now, Brian, it's the New Testament church. Israel's been temporarily set aside, so it can't refer to something in this age.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, praying for Netanyahu, the best thing we could pray for Netanyahu is that he would come to Christ.
Exactly.
He needs to know the Lord. He's referring to the Bible. He's actually, I know people that know him. He's doing Bible studies and so forth, but he needs to know the Messiah is what he really needs. And so I think that would be our prayer.
Exactly.
For him and all of the leaders of the nation of Israel.
That God would shape his heart. And and Joel,
God would open their eyes.
Joel's worked with Prime Minister Netanyahu, and I think he still has a relationship with him, still talks to him, and so we can pray that God will open his eyes there. Well, our eyes got to be closed now. We're out of time for the day. So you'll be on tomorrow.
I will be on tomorrow with my special guest, Cheryl Broderson.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So special edition tomorrow is
good. Special edition with Cheryl. Now, will Cheryl then be doing the announcement about the beauty bash in that night, probably rather than you?
Maybe I can get her.
I think that's probably a good idea.
Yeah, maybe we'll even drag a couple of the beauty bash people in
that'd
here.
be great.
Let us do a few minutes initially to talk about it.
If they do makeup, it won't be on you to be on Cheryl or somebody else, right? Yeah. Okay, good enough. All right, so fantastic. All right, thank you everyone who participated. Now, you'll be taking calls eventually, won't you? Tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow.
Okay, they will. But Brian and Cheryl on tomorrow. That's good. Now, when's the last time you guys were on together?
It's been a while, and we talked about maybe trying to do once a month on Fridays. So we're going to give it a shot tomorrow, and then who knows where we'll be next month.
That's right. Your wife's very much in demand.
She is. She's all over the place.
Yes,
it's crazy.
Yeah, at least she's going to be home for that's good. All right. Well, the music's about to play here, telling us we're done with. Well, there we go. Terrific Thursday's over for Pastor Brian. I'm Don Stewart saying thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you again tomorrow when Brian and Cheryl are on Pastor's Perspective Special Edition. Until then, may the Lord richly bless. Bye-bye.
We pray you've been blessed and that you'll join us again for another edition of Pastor's Perspective. The preceding was sponsored by Calvary Chapel and K-Wave.